Boa tarde. Estamos de volta, agora ao vivo,
Good afternoon. Now we're back
conosco.
live to
Muito
answer your
obrigado pelo
questions.
interesse em nossa companhia.
Thank you so much for your interest in
Estamos
our company. Before we
energizados,
begin,
todo
I would
mundo.
like to give you
Hoje,
a
dia
little
12
energy
de
here.
agosto, marca a
Today,
nossa
on the
entrada
12th
no
of
estado
August,
do
we are
Amazonas,
entering the
com
state of
sede em
Amazonas
Assunção e
with
5
distribution
lojas,
centers and
agora
5
que
stores
inauguramos hoje em Manaus.
that we
Chegamos a
started
esse
now in
estado tão
Manaus.
importante,
We reached
reforçando nosso
such an
compromisso com a
important state, reinforcing
omnicanalidade.
our commitment to
Vamos
our
ver
omnichannel
rapidinho um
approach.
pequeno
We're
clipe
going to quickly
do que
look
ocorreu
at
agora há pouco em
a
Manaus,
clip of what
30
went
segundos.
on now in Manaus. Just 30 seconds.
Deu para sentir o clima, né? Deu
So
para
I
sentir o
think you
clima.
got a bit of the vibe,
Omnicanalidade aqui
and I can talk
é
about the omni-channel
muito
approach all day
expressiva,
long.
é a
But what you just
omnicanalidade
saw
de verdade ao
is
vivo.
the actual
Levamos a
omni-channel
marca,
approach
leva o cliente
live.
para a loja,
The
para
strength of our
online,
brand
as
takes
lojas ficam
consumers
como
online
pontos de
to the
entrega mais
store.
família,
The stores are like last mile hubs for
para
delivery and
cartão de
relationship
crédito, temos um relacionamento
platforms,
importante,
a
é um passo
point for
importante na
credit
expansão do nosso
granting,
país,
banking.
seguindo o
It's an
que
important
fizemos
step in our
com muito
expansion in the north
sucesso
of the
no
country,
Pará em
following what
2021.
we've done with a lot of success in
Seguimos com
Pará in
uma
2021.
muito
So
assertiva,
we continue
consciente,
to be very
executando nossa
assertive and very
expansão.
consistent
E
performing our
agora
expansion
temos foco lá
planning.
em cima.
And now that our energy is way up there,
Essas imagens são agora
and these
estamos lá
images
no
are
norte
here
de
from the
Manaus,
morning around 9 when we
onde
opened up,
teremos
where
mais
we had a queue going all around
Francisco, você
the
pode entrar aqui
stores.
e passar para o Gabriel
So now I want to
para
go
você.
in and pass this on to Gabriel so we can
Bom
begin our
dia a
Q&A.
todos, obrigado
Hey
Roberto.
everyone, good
Primeira
afternoon.
pergunta é
Thank you,
do
Roberto.
Joseph
Our first
Giordano, do
question is
JP
from
Morgan.
Joseph Giordano from JP Morgan.
Olá, bom dia a
Joseph,
todos. Bom dia,
please.
Roberto,
Hi there. Good
Josi
morning,
Padilha,
everyone. Good
Calabró,
morning,
Ellison,
Roberto, Cadilha,
Sérgio
Calabra,
Trajano,
Alison,
Gabi,
Sergio.
Catarina da Gama.
Thank you for taking
Mas
my
a pergunta é um
question.
pouco
And my
na
question is
produtividade
kind
das
of
novas
in
lojas
line with the
que a gente
productivity of
entrou
the new
no
stores.
estado
You
do
just
Amazonas. A
announced
gente viu
your entrance in the state of
muita
Amazonas,
produtividade
and
das
we saw
lojas, uma oferta
important store
surpreendente de
productivity that was
de
very
serviço,
surprising in this quarter. It was a
principalmente
very
no que
difficult
olha
quarter, especially when we take a look at the segment
que
for
talvez
lower
seja mais
income, which is probably
consumidor
what a bit more of the core customers. And I wanted to explore
ao
2
que você
points with you.
atribui
One, what you
esse ganho de
attribute
market share.
this market share gain in the physical world, and I
E o
think that's
segundo
the main
ponto
first
é
point.
como é que vocês
The
estão vendo
second
essa
point is
tendência
how you've
no
been
segundo
seeing
semestre do
this
ano,
trend throughout the
principalmente
second semester of the
quando a
year,
gente pode começar a ver
especially when it comes
o auxílio
to
da,
noticing
da economia, provavelmente vai ajudar
the
a
government
economia.
income support
E
and
por último,
how that
explorando
would help with the
mais
economy a bit more.
oportunidades de
So
expansão
finally, I want to help
com
with
vários stores,
a discussion on a bit more of the
no segundo
opportunities for store
semestre que tem
expansions
previsto
and
para
how you're
essa
looking at the
expansão.
second
Obrigado.
semester when it comes to expansion.
Obrigado, José.
Thank you
Obrigado pela
very much.
pergunta.
Thank you, Joseph. Thank you for that question.
Então, na verdade,
Well,
eu acho que o que está
actually,
aparecendo
I
agora no
think
último período, nesses
now
3 anos
for
de
quite a
transformação que
while
a
in the
gente vem
past
falando,
3 years of
os
transformation, we've been
diferenciais
talking about
dos
the
assets que
differentials
estão
the
na nossa
company has
mão,
and
na
the
mão.
powerful assets that we have
Agora
in
a
our
gente
hands.
começa a
Now
reforçar
we're
isso até no
starting to
momento como
reinforce
esse em que nós estamos.
this, especially in a moment like this one
A gente
where we're
sempre
at.
acreditou que a
We
relação com
always
o
believe
consumidor é
that the
omnicanal,
relationship with consumers is a really omni-channel
independente do
approach,
online ou do físico ou
and
do local.
there's not an online or
Ele é
physical.
um
Or,
dia, no nome que ele quer, no dia que ele quer.
consumers can access us however they want, wherever they want, and whenever.
E
So
agora,
we're
o que
prepared
a
for
gente
this.
viu
And
nesse
now what
segundo
we've
quarto é
seen
a
in the
loja
second
física
quarter is
ganhando mais
the physical
prioridade
store kind of
na
gaining a lot more
relação com o
priority.
nosso vendedor
And
online.
the priority with our online
E nós temos
sellers
otimizado
also
essa loja,
making
né? Por
priorities
exemplo, a crediário,
because we have
que
important
em
assets at
momentos
the
como
stores,
esse,
like the
onde
buy
a
now, pay
renda do
later book,
consumidor
at
fica mais
moments where
comprimida,
the
nós
income of
precisamos ter
the
uma
consumer
ferramenta para
becomes a
adequar
little more
o
restricted,
produto do
then we have an
do
important
consumidor
tool
exatamente
to
na
adjust
parcela que cabe
their desirable
na bolsa
product
dele,
exactly in
usando
an
essa
installment that
perspectiva
fits in their pocket in a very
coisas
precise
absolutamente
manner with
calculadas. Vocês viram durante
losses that are really
o vídeo em
controlled, as
Calabro aqui
you've
para poder
seen
explorar
during the video. And
ainda
Calabra
mais
can get into
nesse
this
sentido.
a little more to explore any of these
A
questions
gente
that I might be
dá um
outstanding. But
salto muito grande
we're really taking an
no
important
segmento
leap
de
at the
share.
physical stores. We gained
O que a
market
gente mostra
share,
aqui, José,
and what
é
we're seeing
o que
now
vem sendo
is
sempre desde o início,
Compre Confie,
você
which
já
is the
vê
measurement we always
os
used ever
ganhos
since the
market
beginning. And
share
we've also
no
noticed
1P
a
nas
gain in
principais
market
stores
share
ali.
in 1P in the
Lembrando
core
você que
categories of
base
Via.
comparável
And I want to mention that our
não
comparable
acontece, então
basis has no
sempre
acquisitions back
positivo.
then, so it's
E
just us
apesar
against
da
ourselves.
gente ter experimentado uma
And
queda
since,
online,
despite experiencing a drop in the online
hoje a gente
environment,
enxerga
from the
pequeno
Compre
market
Confie
share
numbers, we also
mesmo
see
com
market
essa
share
queda.
gains,
Então,
even with
assim,
this drop. So
o mercado
I
está
think
mais
it's
desafiador,
important
essa é
because
uma
the
verdade,
market's more challenging,
mas
and this
nós
is a truth.
estamos lidando bem com isso
But
e
we're
sabemos
handling this
ter
very well with
disposição
the
aqui na
tools
Via.
we have at our disposal
Com relação
here
à
on
sequência
Zoom,
de expansão de lojas, então a gente acabou de
here
inaugurar
at Via.
5
So
stores,
now about the sequence of
essa
stores, we
expansão
just
tem
opened
sido
5 stores now.
de
And it's
muita
important to
adesão
mention
dentro
that
da loja,
these images
pelo
of a lot of people trying to come into the
esse
store and
momento da
queues
loja,
going all around the store that
isso
exist
mede
up until now at the
uma
store.
escada de
This is not
operação nos
because
nossos
of the
empreendimentos quando
massification
fizemos
or massified
uma operação
disclosure and
totalmente
publicity
nova,
and
a
advertising
gente não
before.
quis
Since it's a
massificar
completely different
esse
market, we didn't want to
investimento.
have like
Então, o
massive
entrada
communication. We
mensal
wanted to go in
é
slowly. So going in
50% ali.
slowly is the
A gente tem
image you
mais
just saw in the video. We have
5 lojas
another 4 or 5 stores expected
pré-disputadas
for Manaus,
nesse ano ainda.
and I
E
think
aí
a big
sim a gente vai
part will
fazer uma
be this year
comunicação
still, and then we're going to be
mais
able to
massiva se for
communicate
necessário.
more
Nós
aggressively if
tomamos a
necessary.
decisão de
So
há
we just made the
3
decision
meses
to
começar a fazer pré-cadastro de
start
consumidores em
working on
Manaus.
the
Então tem muitos
pre-registration
consumidores
in
que
Manaus.
entram pela
So now
primeira
we have a
vez
lot of
com uma loja
consumers that are coming
reserva
in for
já
the
com
first
crédito
time
pré-aprovado
with
pela
pre-approved
BAC,
credit.
do diferencial que a
So
gente tem.
part of this
O nosso plano de
differential
expansão
that we
segue
have,
vivo, então a gente
um,
deve finalizar
our
esse ano
expansion plan
com
is
umas
still
70
active.
lojas. Depois o Sérgio
We should
complementa
finish
aí.
this year with about 70
70 e
stores,
75
between
lojas
70 and
até o final
75
do ano.
stores
E a gente segue ativo
till the end of the year. And we're still
principalmente
active with this,
norte,
especially
nordeste
in the
e
north and
nordeste. É
northeast
para onde
of
é
the
direcionada a nossa
country
expansão.
where we've really
E a gente
designed our
começou
expansion.
agora,
So, yes, the
deve
government
começar a ter
income support
positivo
should
para o nosso
start now
negócio.
and
Então a
lead
gente,
to
com
positive
a gente
effects in retail as a
tem essa
whole
ajuda para
and for
tentar
our business.
capturar boa
We
parte
have
desses
the assets
consumidores
to
que
be
vão
able
estar
to
mais
capture
seletivo
most of these
a
consumers that are
consumir.
going to be more
A gente
willing
vai
to
impactar de
consume.
maneira mais
And I think this is
acelerada
going to be
nos
impacting us in a
próximos
more accelerated way
ciclos
in the
de
next
recebimento. Então talvez
cycles of
impacte
receipt.
muito ao quarto
So I think
trimestre.
this may
No
impact a lot
primeiro
of the fourth
trimestre
quarter.
de
What we saw in the
2023,
first wave of the Corona
nosso
voucher
auxílio foi muito para
was
pagar
that in the beginning it was mostly used to
supermercado.
pay debts
Então foi
and
muito desenvolvimento
supermarkets.
do
So
auxílio naquele momento. E
um,
depois sim,
this is how we saw
fomos
the use of the Corona
para o
voucher at the
segmento
moment.
onde atuamos agora,
And then we moved on to the segment where we
vertical
operate,
com o
which is
marketplace.
super
Se
horizontal
isso
with the
gerar,
marketplace. So,
a gente
of course,
está
this should generate
acreditando que o
impact.
terceiro TRI
We think that this
ainda
third
fica
quarter
positivo e o quarto TRI
it
com
still
certeza com
has
toda
some
essa
challenges in
demanda
the fourth
que
quarter
vai
due
ser
to all of the
aplicada,
seasonality
mas
embedded and this
potencialmente acho que vai
distribution
ser
going on. We
bastante
think
forte.
it's going to be really strong.
Perfeito, muito obrigado, Roberto.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Alberto.
Roberto, nossa próxima pergunta
Now, our
Gustavo
next question,
Fratini, de
Humberto,
Goldman
is
Sachs.
from Gustavo Frattini from Goldman
Pessoal, boa
Sachs.
tarde.
Hey
Da minha lado
guys,
aqui
good
seriam só duas
afternoon. On my
perguntas.
side
A
here, we have
primeira
two
seria,
questions.
de
The first
fato,
one would
esse
be
ponto das
about
lojas físicas. Acho que a
this topic
recuperação
with the
dos
physical
números
stores,
da
and I
Via
think the
foi bem
recovery in the
impressionante.
sales performance was
Eu
very
queria, então,
significant. And I want
aprofundar
to
na pergunta do
do
Joseph.
some
Vocês
follow-ups here
acreditam que
on
houve
Joseph's
talvez um
question.
pouco de um
Um,
shift-back do
do you
mundo
think there was a
online
bit of
para
a
a
shift
volta do
back
mundo
from the
físico?
online world
E se
back
essa é
to
uma
the
tendência
physical
que
world?
vocês continuam
And is this
vendo,
a
né,
trend you're
nesses meses
continuing to
também que
notice
tanto
in
agora
these months,
nessa primeira
in
metade do
July
ano
and
de
now in the
2024?
first
E a
half of
segunda
August?
pergunta também chamou a
And the
atenção de
second
atenção é o
question is
aumento da
also calling a bit
penetração
of
de
our attention, which
envios
is
no
the increase in
marketplace
the
por meio de
penetration of
aplicativos.
MVs in the marketplace
O
and
que tem
also
causado essa
the
aceleração
fulfillment. So,
tão
what has
rápida e
caused
qual o
this acceleration
potencial
that's so
de
significant?
penetração
What's
desse
the potential
serviço
for
e aí também da
penetration in these
monetização
services,
do que
even when
vocês
it
têm
comes to
oferecido para os seus
monetization and with
clientes?
everything you guys are offering? These are the
Perfeito,
main
Gustavo.
questions.
Obrigado pela
Thanks.
pergunta. Eu vou começar aqui
Perfect,
pelo
Gustavo. Thanks for that question. I'm going to start off here,
setor
and
de
then
envios.
Sergio will continue with
Essa
Envias.
migração, na
I
verdade,
think that this
Gustavo,
migration
o
is
Brasil, ele ainda é muito físico. O
Brazil is
consumidor
still
gosta
very
muito da
physical.
loja física.
Consumers
Agora,
like physical
isso que
stores.
vocês viram
And
aqui
the
é
proof
o
of this
modelo
is what
de
you guys
dia a
just
dia
saw. This is what we see every
nas
day
nossas lojas. Então,
at our
o
stores.
fluxo de
So
venda é híbrido.
consumers are hybrid. We don't believe that Brazilian consumers are going to ramp up in a drastic or radical manner to online. we consider they're going to continue to be pretty hybrid. And then we're trying to figure out how we can work with them in the best way so that customers can be serviced as they prefer to be related to. So we have the necessary assets to meet these customers in an omni-channel approach with all of our channels, with a major differential of having the online seller. So it's a hybrid online approach where consumers are assisted, and you can see that it's still very strong with all the stores open. So the online seller is still quite strong, and this also brings in a lot of strength to the marketplace because more and more the seller's getting used to selling an assortment that's completely different than what he was used to selling before, and he starts offering solutions that are really complete to consumers. So yes, there was a shift. We see online sales having some kind of a slowdown, and physical sales has growth. But by the numbers we saw, we understand we gained market share in both. We followed strongly with our plan in the marketplace, and in a very strong way, we've been looking to the long tail, which really levers Envias, which is the topic Sergio will get into in a bit. And so now we're seeing a bit of what could become the normality in Brazil. So it was really accelerated online because of the pandemic. For us, it was great. The company really became online during the pandemic. We performed all of the online transformation, but now we're working with customers in an omni-channel approach, really. So, Sergio, do you want to come in when it comes to Envia? It's great, Roberto. Good afternoon, Gustavo, and welcome. Thank you for your interest in Via. So first of all, I'm going to go back to the topic about the physical store to reinforce this a bit because it connects with Joseph's question also. And I want to remind you that from the 32 stores we opened this year, most of them were new markets also. So we have a brand awareness that's very significant due to the history of our brand, a big expectation, which is also connected to our positive performance at the new stores. But I want to remind you that this leverages significantly our online activities. So we've measured this and we've seen some peaks that are even bigger than 200% when we set up a physical store in that environment, in that region. Besides all of the logistical benefits for the service, um, from the online customer to the physical store. So about MVS, we're very happy about this, and we're going to be launching the switch of services in the last month of 2020, January 2021, where we start pretty timidly, but we're going to start building the elements of technology to support scale up in this service. So we started off with adding the collection process, drop off, the use of the physical stores as a drop off point for sellers. And now this year we acquired CNT, and we embedded and brought their technology in, which was Logtech that we acquired in January. And then we were able to accelerate all of our fulfillment plans. So we're really in line with our growth plans and expectations, and we see this potential for a very few years that the fulfillment will will have more than 30% of all the deliveries in the marketplace. There's a business case that's also been confirmed for this offer of services. This is an offer of services that I consider to be very profitable in the fulfillment on its own. And considering the profitability that it brings in, it also causes a bit of a reduction in the cost in the last mile that I also consider to be very significant, and it benefits our P&L. So we're very happy because it's a solution that creates value for the seller, it creates value for the consumer because it improves the level of service and quicker delivery, and it also gives us a benefit of profitability. So we're really happy. We've been moving along well. Colleagues that came from the acquired companies that also bring in an important technology background have been reinforcing this, and they help us provide more security to the scalability for the next period and nearby future. Thank you. That's super clear. Now, Roberto and team, our next question is from João Soares from Citibank. Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for
Acho que
taking my
é
question.
explorar um pouquinho essa
I think
dinâmica de
that I
preço,
want to
porque, né,
talk about
tem várias
the
partes
three
aqui, né? Tem um
P
aumento de número de
dynamic. So
pedidos,
there's a lot of
tem um
moving
aumento do
parts.
número
You
de
have an increase in the
sellers,
number
só que no
of
final do ano
orders, the number
tava
of
bastante
sellers,
alto e a
and at
redução
the
no
end of the
ticket
day,
médio, né?
we're
Foi
really
grande,
seeing this
principalmente
reduction in
no
the
primeiro e
average
no
ticket. You
quarto
guys have
ano.
been migrating
Eu acho que é
to the long
interessante
tail.
entender essa trajetória, né? Conforme
So I
vocês
think it's
vão
important to understand
estabelecendo
this
esse novo patamar de ticket médio,
journey
a gente
as
deveria
you
ver uma
become a little more
reversão,
established in this
né,
one other level of
dessa
the average
tendência,
ticket.
né? E olhando
Where should
também
we see this kind
a
of
parte
turnaround in this
econômica,
trend?
vocês têm
So,
melhorado bastante. A gente vê
looking
o
at your
take rate
economics,
subindo
they've
pretty
improved a
forte
lot. The
aí, né?
take
Então
rates
acho
are
que tem
going
que
up
ver
quarter over
como é que
quarter.
está a competitividade
I want to
também, né?
understand what's the
Olhando
competitive
por esse lado que vocês estão
landscape
cobrando dos
and
sellers,
how
né? Essa é a
competitive
primeira
you guys have
pergunta. A
been with
segunda,
the
eu queria ouvir um pouco
commissions you
sobre
guys are uh,
inadimplência, né? Vocês conseguem
charging from the
melhorar
sellers.
a
So
qualidade da
about
carteira com os
non-payment
sellers,
and
coisa que a gente não
default,
viu
you guys have been
em
able to
geral nas
improve the
empresas de
quality
varejo,
of your
né? Então eu queria que
portfolio,
vocês
which is something we
pudessem
didn't see in
explorar um pouco esse
general
ponto aqui que é
in the
interessante.
retail
Obrigado.
company. So I think it would be interesting if you could explore this a little more.
Perfeito, João. Obrigado pela
Thanks.
pergunta. Eu vou só dar uma
Perfect, Ronald.
pincelada
Thank you
aqui. Eu
for
vou
that
passar para o
question. I'm
Ellison
just
na
going to
sequência e
quickly
depois
cover this, and I'll pass it
para
on
o
to
André
Alison
Calabro.
and then Andrea Calabro.
Gente, o que a gente está vendo
I
aqui,
think
assim,
that
como
what we're
Roberto
seeing
comentou, é
now
realmente
that's happening with the marketplace at
tudo
Via
dentro daquilo que a
is
gente planejou, né?
absolutely
A gente
within
tentou
what was
simplificar cada
expected.
vez
So
mais o
really
número de pedidos aqui,
increasing the
com
volumes
muita
of
frequência e
orders here,
recorrência com o consumidor,
really gaining a
deixando
lot
que
of
um bom
frequency and
acelerador na
recurrence with
plataforma
the consumer. This
acelera
is,
a
of
nossa
course,
rede 1P,
an
acelera a
important
rede
process to
direto,
accelerate
acelera
our
essa logística
platform,
que o Sérgio acabou
1P
de
and
dizer
sales of
e
credit,
reduz
services,
de maneira
logistics,
expressiva o nosso
and it
custo.
significantly
Então,
reduces our customer
tentando ser
acquisition
bastante
cost.
competitivos, a gente
So
liderou o
yes,
banco de
we've been
tabela
very
no ano
competitive. We
passado.
led the
As
increase
outras plataformas
in the
vieram
price
logo
charts.
na sequência.
The other platforms
Conseguimos
came
ser competitivos, então
subsequently.
não
We've
tá
been very
muito
competitive. We haven't
diferente.
noticed much of an
E
issue with
assim,
our
com relação
competitiveness.
a
When it
GMV,
comes
eu
to
diria que ele não é a nossa
GMV,
prioridade
I'd
imediata.
say that it's
Ele é uma
not our priority
consequência de tudo
immediately.
isso que
It's a
nós estamos fazendo.
consequence of everything
Mas
we're doing
acreditamos
here.
assim, a partir
But we
do ano
should
que vem
see
já,
that from
uma
next
aceleração que a
year
gente
onwards,
vai ver
there should be
por,
like an
por esse movimento que
acceleration
a
in
gente
the
está
GMV
produzindo. Vou
because
passar para o Ellison,
of all of
que
the
pode ajudar
volumes we're
bastante aqui
producing.
na
So
fala.
I'll pass the floor to Alison and he can add on to
Difícil
this
também.
a lot.
Difícil me responder
So
uma coisa
thanks.
que ele fala
Hey,
tudo,
good
né?
afternoon. It's
De
difficult to
acordo
answer
com
after Roberto because he always says everything.
tudo que é falado,
But
que a gente
in
sabe,
other
que a
words,
gente
what
espera,
we're
é uma coisa que eu
experiencing here is really what we call like a
revisou,
J
é o
curve.
foco,
So we
categorias curtas
migrated
do
our
front,
focus,
agora na cauda longa,
and
isso
now
daí
we're
não
moving
é,
on to like some of the
em
long tail
momento algum,
categories,
deixa eu ser
the
claro, em
rearrangement.
momento algum
Let me
a
make it
nossa
clear.
política de preço
We are
ela
in no way having a take rate
impacta
or
o
price
desempenho do
policy that
GMV,
would
não é por
impact
isso.
GMV
Então a gente é
performance, and that's
altamente
not the cause.
competitivo em take
We're
rate.
highly
Se você
competitive in the
comparar o
take
que que
rate.
é a nossa
If you
plataforma versus
compare
os
our
demais,
platform
o que
versus
é
the other
tirado a
platforms,
cobrança
and what
all-in,
is
né? A
actually
gente é
the
super
all-in
competitivo,
collections, we're
o que
super
no momento,
competitive. Now, what
eventualmente,
happened
sellers
as with
operando de maneira
possible
diferente é
sellers
por causa dos ajustes que
operating
normalmente
differently is
eles têm
because
feito
of the
nos
adjustments
sistemas
that
de
they have
gestão.
normally in
Mas
their
eles, por
management
exemplo,
systems. But when it
continua,
comes
a gente
to the
segue o número
assortment,
de sellers
we're still
crescendo,
firm.
a gente
The number of
em
sellers is
nenhum momento a
growing,
gente teve
and
esse
so in no moment did
esse
we
desvio de GMV por conta
have
de
this drop
performance
in
de seller,
GMV because of
mas
the
principalmente por
seller's
conta de
performance,
otimização da nossa
but because of the
plataforma em
optimization of our
todos os
platform and a
indicadores
bigger
para cada
focus
loja.
in all of the long
Então,
tail
significa o
tools.
quê?
So the
A
J
gente
curve really
cumpre
means
todos os
that
objetivos para
we
loja,
are
vai
migrating
aprendendo com isso,
all
vai
of this to
operando
the
melhor.
long tail.
A gente
We're
vê, como o
learning
Roberto
with this,
falou, dessa
operating better, and the
performance na
GMV,
sequência.
as Roberto mentioned, should be recovered
Para
soon
complementar muito
after.
dentro, se vocês
So this is
repararem,
really in line.
quando
Just if you remember
a
our
gente
previous
declarou a nossa
calls when we
estratégia
declared our
com o
strategy
marketplace, foi
for
absolutamente
the
dentro de
marketplace,
tudo que a
this is
gente
in
vem
line with
declarando.
everything
Então, o
we've
nosso
been
marketplace ele já é
saying
sustentado.
to the market.
Quando a
So our
gente
marketplace is
começou a
already
operação de fulfillment,
sustainable.
nós
When we
declaramos que
started
seria um
the fulfillment
crescimento
operation,
rápido,
we said it would
porque
be
os
quick
assets já
growth
estão prontos.
because the assets are
A gente
ready
incorporou
already.
a
So
tecnologia
what we did is
CNT,
we embedded the
tem
CNT
muito algoritmo por
technology.
trás
We have a lot of algorithms
desse planejamento
behind all
que a
of this
gente faz.
planning
Então
process,
o asset já está pronto, o
um,
CD já existe, a loja
and
já
the assets
existe,
are
o
ready. The
nível de
DC already
coleta está
exists.
sendo muito forte,
The collection level is
através
pretty
das APIs que a
strong
gente comprou lá
through
atrás,
a
em
Zaplog that we
2020.
acquired back then
Então,
in
assim,
2020.
é um crescimento
So
diferente do
this
que a
is
gente
a
vê
level of
normalmente, é uma
growth that's
plataforma
very
que
different
começa
than what we
do
see
zero.
normally in a platform that starts from scratch. So ours is not starting from scratch. And as Sérgio mentioned, this brings in a lot of benefits to the consumers for greater profitability at the it brings in benefits to the seller, and it also provides major benefits for cost reductions because more and more boxes are being handled and transported in our logistical network and our distribution in stores. I'm going to pass the floor on to Kala, but also you can address the second question. Hey everyone, good afternoon. Thanks for the question. Um, in the last quarter, we had already warned the market about our short-term indicators that were performing at a really satisfactory level, and that this would then have positive impact in our over 90 indicators and also in our provisions. So our PDD and our index of provisions has also been reduced. And why did this happen? Two reasons here. First, in the fourth quarter of 2021, we had a series of improvements and adjustments in our strategies for credit. And all of these were focused on really evaluating the growth of production and drop in the default rates. So we anticipated ourselves and the effects of this improvement in the algorithms and in our strategies really bring in these indicators that not only reflect this now, but up ahead we're quite comfortable also that these indicators will be very controlled. So we also included an important page with macroeconomic indicators in the presentation to bring in a little bit of our vision, of course, without getting into our strategy too much, but to show you a bit of how we've been seeing what's going on and in line with our strategies, how these indicators will also help us. So we brought in, as we all know, a drop in the unemployment rate, and we also use information from IBG, the Brazilian Statistics Agency, and we can notice that as we correlate the unemployment per age range and we correlate this with our portfolio, we can see that besides the fact that there's some pre-pandemic indicators actually that are even better than the pre-pandemic periods, when we correlate this with our portfolio, then we start seeing that our portfolio is also really concentrated on the lower unemployment indexes. So another important effect that's really connected to our strategy also is when we look at default rates and non-payment and the debt on average for Brazilians, we can see that the highest default rates are in the cards and not in the installment payments. So we disclose retail and cards, and we also demonstrate that our default is even smaller than retail. But what's most important is that our average debt is growing and ours is actually dropping. So this is a fruit of the adjustments and improvements that we performed in our strategy to finally reach this moment. And once again, we're really comfortable with these indicators. In the next quarters, we'll continue with this trend. And as you mentioned, it's a little different than what we've noticed in the market because we use a lot of technology. 99% of our decisions are based on algorithms. We have a lot of historical information from these consumers. These consumers also have this relationship with the brand that's very strong, and this, of course, really values our credit line and credit facilities. And sometimes it's the only credit facility they have available, so that's why they really value it. And thank you very much. I hope to have answered. You did answer that. Thank you, Edison and Roberto.
A nossa próxima pergunta é
So
do
our next
Rubem
question
Couto,
now is
do
from Ruben Couto from Santander.
Boa tarde,
Ruben,
pessoal.
please.
Eu tô
Hey,
falando
good
dessa
afternoon,
questão
guys.
de
I have a
o
follow-up
CDC
here about
digital, ele
default, the
tem uma
CDC
referência de
digital.
perfil
How has that
diferente de um
contributed?
perfil que
Is it
deveria
very
pegar
different, the
uma
profile? I
pessoa
think it would be great to hear a bit
ganhando
more
mais
from you guys about this,
representatividade. E uma
since
outra, na
there's
verdade,
been
pensando aqui
significant
vários
share. And
nesse
another
segundo
point also
semestre,
about the EBITDA margin for
uma
the
parcela
second semester.
importante aí
There's an
da
important
melhoria
parcel
da
that's
redução
related
da
to the
SG&A
improvement
desde
of the
virada do ano para cá,
SG&A
mais ou
ever
menos
since the turnaround
uma
in the
redução
beginning of the year, this year, where we had a reduction of
mais
basically like
abrupta
four
do que
adjustments in the
nós
operation. But now in the second
aceleração
semester,
ainda
we should
maior,
start noticing
envolvendo a maior
even
caixa
greater
lógica,
acceleration
uma
with even more
necessidade de
customer
recurso.
flow in the
Isso a gente
stores.
pode imaginar
So is there a need to recover this, or can we imagine a ongoing reduction when it comes to SG&A? Thank you very much. Do you want? I'll start here, Calabro, and then you can get the second one. Thanks for that question. The digital CDC, as you demonstrated, it's almost 7% in sales already. So we can see that we've always mentioned that the online expansion needs credit, and we are using our credit strategy to really favor those customers that don't have another a way to perform purchases. And on 3P, uh, we're gonna also have it growing consistently. And about default, it's really close to the rates we already have in the physical stores. The main difference is though, when we compare the digital CDC and the physical CDC, is that normally, and we even demonstrate this, but the products that are acquired through the digital CDC are closer to the tail than the products that we sell in the stores. And the average term is a little bit smaller, and the value of the ticket is a little bit lower. So this, of course, helps the default to be a little more stable and keep up with levels that are similar to what we have currently. But with the digital CDC, we also reach another level of the population. So the profile of the consumer that buys online is a little different than the profile of the consumer that buys at our stores. So this is also an important benefit for us because we this helps us to penetrate more and more. And if we were to compare with social levels, this helps us penetrate our services among people that have higher purchase power. So the digital tool is a differential for us. Thank you very much.
Rubem, complementando aqui a segunda parte
Hey,
do
Hubing,
Gabriel,
to add on to the second part, thank you for the
ao
question.
SG&A,
When it comes
de
to
fato a gente
SG&A,
começou isso
certainly we
no
started
segundo
off
trimestre do ano
in
passado,
the second quarter last
e
year,
isso é reflexo de
and
algumas
this
coisas, mas
is a
talvez
reflection
a
of some
mais
factors. So
importante
maybe
é
the
o ganho
most
de
important is
produtividade
the
que a
productivity gain
Via colhe
that VIA
baseado
takes a look
nos
at
últimos três
based
anos de
on
forte
the
investimento
3 years of
que foi
strong
feito. E todo esse
investment that we've
investimento
had.
em
So
tecnologia
all of this
está
investment in
agregando bastante
technology is
produtividade
adding a lot of
para a
productivity
Via
and
nas mais
to
diversas
VIA
áreas da companhia.
in various
Então, à medida
different
que
areas in the company. So
essa
as
colhe agora no quarto
uh,
trimestre,
sales
à
scale
medida que
up
ela
in the
vem
fourth quarter,
escalando
for
para o ano que vem
example,
e que a gente
and
tenha, por
scale up
exemplo,
next year as
redução
well,
das
and we
taxas
have
Selic,
a reduction of the
talvez
Selic
encalibrar
rate
mais,
and even
nós,
to scale up even
é um
more.
tipo da despesa que não deve
This is
voltar
the
mais.
type of
Então, assim,
expense that
nós
shouldn't
não
come
precisamos
back. So
fazer
we
grandes
don't need to
reposições
have
para
major
ganhar escala na venda.
restructuring
Nós estamos com
to gain
produtividade
scale on the
hoje
sales. We've
muito
had a
maior do que a
productivity that's a
gente
lot
tinha há
greater
3, há 2, há
than what we
4
had
anos,
maybe
e isso
3,
está
2,
sendo
or 1 years
refletido no
ago.
SG&A. Então,
And this
sim, a
is
gente
being reflected in our
consegue
SG&A. So
preocupar
yes, we can ramp
direcionando
up
mais as
our
vendas à medida que o
sales in
mercado
a more
acelera mais,
accelerated way as the market
mantendo
accelerates
os
more,
patamares
and we can
de
keep the
despesa que a gente
levels
está hoje.
of
O que impacta
expenses that we currently have.
evidentemente,
So
quem
what
tem
most
mais
impacts
loja
us is
física tem
as you sell a lot more in the
variável
physical stores,
implícito
you have the variable
da loja
costs that are
física, esse
implicit in the physical
aumenta, mas
store,
ele não
and these, of
leva
course,
para a
go
venda.
up. But this is a direct function or effect of the sales. Okay, very clear, guys. Thanks.
Próxima pergunta do Vitor Pini,
How
do
about our
Safra.
next question is
Vitor,
from
por favor.
Vitor Pini from Safra.
Obrigado,
Vitor,
Gabriel.
please.
Boa tarde, Roberto.
Thank you,
Boa tarde,
Gabriel.
Luciano.
Good
Eu queria
afternoon,
perguntar para
Hobart
o
and
Roberto
team. I wanted to
sobre essa
hear a bit
expectativa
about
e como é que vocês
your
enxergam a dinâmica de
expectations and how
caixa
you're
no
looking
segundo
at the
semestre, né?
cash
Agora no
dynamics
segundo
for
tri,
the
a
second
gente viu
semester. Now, in the
bom
second
desempenho
quarter,
de
we
capital de
noticed
giro,
a
também
pretty
no
good
balanço
performance in the working
entre
capital and also
demandas
between
trabalhistas
the
e
balance
rendas
between
fiscais também
uh, uh,
positivas, né? Qual
labor
é a
issues
expectativa de
and
vocês para o
tax
resto do
credits is
ano,
also
enfim?
pretty positive. But what's your
Obrigado.
expectation for the rest of the year?
Obrigado pela
Thanks.
pergunta, Vitor. Então, assim, acho que a
Well,
companhia
just
fez um
thanks for
excelente
that
trabalho
question.
agora
I
no
think the
segundo
company
trimestre de
had
geração de caixa. A gente
excellent
vem
work
olhando
when
com
it comes
muita
to cash
atenção para isso,
generation, and
desde
we've been
sempre,
looking
parte
at this a lot.
do core do nosso negócio.
It's really part of
Passar para
our
o
core
Padilha aqui, ele
business.
pode dar
I'm going to pass the floor
detalhes
on
de
to
como é que foi o
Padilha so
segundo
he can
semestre
provide
do
us
ano
some more details
trabalhista
on
e a
how we're
gente
doing in the
espera
second
que os
quarter
números
with the
do próximo
labor
trimestre.
claims and other obligations and how this should perform
Boa
in the
tarde, tá
second
me ouvindo bem?
semester. Thanks. Good afternoon. Can you hear me all right?
Então, a
Yes.
gente começou processo
So we started off
racionalização,
with this process
produtividade,
with like a
gestão de estoque desde o
rationalization
terceiro
and
tri do ano
productivity
passado.
in inventory management, stock
Muita
management ever
atenção
since
nos
the
setores
second
com
quarter of
perda
last
de
year
conta
with a lot of
fornecedores. Então, isso
attention on the
é
coverage
fato que
period.
você viu no segundo tri, um reflexo
And so
desse
this is
movimento.
reflects of this movement, and we're expecting this movement to be ongoing. Um, and really finding the ideal level of stock is the science that we have behind the release of the working capital. So we believe that we're investing technology in this. We have robots working to manage our stock coverage and distribution. So it's really ongoing work. We continue in the third and fourth quarter and next year, and when it comes to expenses and monetization. But we've already started, well, it's going to be the fourth quarter since we've been talking about this topic in a very special way. And I think this is really under control by the company in the last quarters. Now will have a lot less entrances via stop being an easy target for offending lawyers, and we've been gaining a lot of lawsuit claims in the labor justice system and labor laws, and we've improved our defense structures in the last quarters. We also tried to accelerate the completion of older and more expensive lawsuits. The age of our stock also reduced a bunch in the risk did as well. And we've been keeping up this guidance that we provided back then, but we're really on the base of this guidance. So for the next quarters and years, this is tending to reach a more of a normality until it disappears in about a year. Monetization has really helped us to bring in a lot of positive impacts on the operation. The company is learning more how to work to not duplicate lawsuits that lead to more credits and debits. And we've been able to have more than half a billion in monetization this quarter, and we have almost 200 special tax regimes, distribution centers around Brazil and Manaus. We just opened one as well, so we can't take products from one state to another if I were going to pay taxes twice. And so all of this generates a growing gain in the monetization process just for ICMS. In this quarter, we had almost 300 million in monetization, and I have a stock of about 3 billion. So this would be about 10 quarters of offsetting this existing stock. So it's an acceleration of the entire process. And we're expecting that this year this will go over 1.8 billion in the monetization process, and next year and for the next 2 or 3 years about 2 billion rands. And this will help also to overcome the challenges of the labor expenses and also an exceeding amount that we can invest in the business as a whole. Excellent. Thank you so much. Our next question is from Dani Eiger from XP. You guys, good afternoon. Thanks for taking my question. I have three actually. The first one is a mini follow-up here on the previous question about cash generation, but I wanted to explore a bit about these levers you talked about, particularly when it comes to stock and suppliers. If this was more like a adjustment and a cleanup in the level, there's some different conditions you're providing or improving. Could you give us a little more color on this? And I think this would, of course, lead to a dynamic for the future. And it would be great to hear about this. And my second question is more connected to the stock dynamics, and I think maybe something that Roberto can talk about a bit, which is the perspectives for the second semester. People are very optimistic, or carefully optimistic is the best word, right, for the end of the year, especially with Black Friday and all of this and the launch of 5G. So there are many different dynamics that could favor the sector. But I wanted to know how you're doing about this and what's your vision on this. I know there are many moving parts, but I want to understand what your base scenario is, and then you can maybe match this with what the stock strategy would be for this moment. And then my third and last question, I promise, is about the break even of the marketplace, which is maybe a bit of additional work. So you mentioned you reached this. I want to understand if you're already seeing this as a level that's an important positive leverage to have this evolution in the next quarters, and what would be the main leverage so that this can continue to expand. I think these are the three questions I have. Thank you, guys. So the
protegido,
first
né, de
question is
estoque,
about
no
working
caso,
capital
a
here,
gente começou esse movimento
stock
de,
and terms, and we
exatamente,
started this process.
sanitização a palavra, a gente
It's not
trabalhou durante a
really
pandemia com
cleanup,
aquele
but during the
segurança em
pandemic, we worked
função
with that
da
safety
normalidade
stock or
do supply chain
security stock
global.
because of the
Isso,
normality of
desde o
the
terceiro
global
tri do ano
supply
passado, a
chain.
gente
And ever since the third
vem
quarter of
nesse
last
processo
year,
de
we've been
normalização. Nós
normalizing
investimos
this.
nos últimos
And we invested a lot
trimestres
in the
em
last
muita
quarters
tecnologia
and
para colocar o produto
a lot
certo
with
no lugar
technology
certo
to
no
be able
tempo
to add the
certo.
right product
Então,
and the right
acho
timing.
que o Roberto
And I think
e o
Roberto
Serginho disseram
and
sobre a
Serginho mentioned
omnicanalidade
that
das nossas lojas,
the
tem espaço
omni-channel approach in
para
our
tudo
stores have
isso,
space for
tem
stocking up.
inteligência por trás. Que
And of course,
produto eu
there's a
vou
lot of
colocar na tua
intelligence
loja?
behind all of this, right?
Isso
What products
traz
to add
muita
in which stores?
produtividade.
This
Primeiro,
brings in a lot of
um pouco mais
productivity.
rápido,
First of all, I deliver
eu
quicker,
gasto menos frete,
then I spend
fico
less with the freight
não
and
concentro operação
transportation, and I
nas
don't
centrais,
concentrate the
centralizo,
operation
terceirizo
at
esse
my
espaço
DCs.
para
I centralize
desenvolvimento
this,
de
and I
outros negócios.
have
Então,
opportunities for more fulfillment.
é um
And
fluxo
so this is
bastante positivo,
a flow that's
não
really
só
positive,
olhando
not only when you take
a
a look
questão do cliente, mas também
at the customer
a
issues,
produtividade
but
do
also when you
investimento
look at the
em estoque.
productivity of
Então,
the
não
investment
é
in
normal
stock.
e a gente
So
vê
it's
esse movimento
something
acontecendo
we're going to
no
see
segundo, terceiro tri, que
happen a lot in
equilibra
the
o capital
second
de
and
giro.
third quarter of
Quarto
greater
tri,
balancing out
bastante
of the
caixa,
working
porque
capital. In the fourth
é o
quarter, I'm
período
going to open up a
mais
lot of cash because
forte de
it's a
vendas.
period where we have
Estão
strongest
seguindo um
sales,
caixa
and
bastante
so
robusto, varejo
we'll
interno
have
bem,
very
principalmente no nosso
robust cash
varejo. Aí
position.
no
Retail
terceiro,
has
primeiro
its
tri, volta a uma
movement a lot, and then in
normalidade.
the first quarter, we're going to reach a
Esse
situation that's more
balanço
normal,
do ano.
and we have this
Eu
kind of
estoque
balancing out of the
cresceu
year.
em função das
So we'll
vendas, o
see
caixa
stock
crescendo em
growing
função
a
das
lot
vendas.
due to the
No
sales.
final do ano,
But at the end of the year, we'll see the level or maybe the maximum peak
estoque não
of
está
the
tão
cash
forte, o nível
and
máximo
stock.
atingido ali
Will
meados
probably
de
reach
novembro.
a maximum level in
Acredito
mid-November, and then
que
January will already
sim,
start
que o
pretty
primeiro e o
well
segundo tri
with a good balanced position
desequilibrado,
in
mas
the
eu gero
first and
caixa
second quarter.
principalmente no quarto
But
tri.
then
E o movimento
we
normal
generate cash in the fourth quarter. So it's a normal trend,
daí para mais. A
and
gente vai
from
ver
that,
mês
in
a
that
mês
way,
menos dias
to
investidos
growing level.
em
So
função
we'll see
de
more
aumento
less days invested in
tecnológico,
stock because of more technology
do
gains
aprendizado da utilização dessas
and all of the
ferramentas.
lessons learned with these new tools being used.
Uma mensagem aqui pra você ficar mais perto
Cecilia,
da
I
câmera.
just
Tem uma
got a
legenda
message
com
that you
você
should be a
parecendo
little
uma mão, um
closer
pedaço de uma mão
to you,
no
and
fundo
we
de
can
tela
see
ali.
very well.
Já me enquadrei aqui, Roberto.
Okay, I'm back in the right
O...
position.
Oi, Dani,
So,
obrigado pela pergunta.
hey, Danny, thanks for that
Bom, aqui
question. And
Padilha já tratou, então
I
de
think
fato
Budget has
a gente
already
rampou
talked
o
about the
estoque durante a
stock, but we
pandemia,
ramped
fomos
up the
super
stock
assertivos
during the
nisso.
pandemic. We were
A gente
really
comunicou ao
precise
mercado
with
que
this. We
iríamos
communicated
iniciar a
to the
descida do
market that
estoque
we
quando
would
o abastecimento
start
se
a
normalizou.
reduction of the
Também
stock
estamos
because the
sendo
supply had been
bastante assertivos
normalized.
nisso.
We were also being very
Não é
precise in this
exatamente
process.
a
This did
nossa
not
margem
impact
da qualidade
our
do estoque
margins in any way.
que a gente tinha aqui.
So with the
Com
quality
relação
of
ao
the stock
segundo
we had here, but
semestre,
when it comes to
principalmente
the
ao
second
quarto
semester,
trimestre,
especially the fourth quarter,
nós, você usou uma palavra boa, um termo bom,
you used a
otimista,
good word, right?
precaução, como é que foi? Uma coisa assim, né?
Careful optimist, right?
Cautelosamente, cautelosamente otimista. É isso.
Carefully
Nós somos
optimistic. Yeah, that's
cautelosamente
it.
otimistas.
So we're
A gente acha
carefully
que, de
optimistic, and
fato,
we
tem uma
believe
boa
that
ramp up
certainly
aí para acontecer.
there is
Então, a
a
gente
good
tem
ramp up to take
a curva
place,
do
and we
Black
have
Friday,
the World
Natal
Cup, Black
e também o
Friday,
lançamento do
Christmas, and
5G
we
que
also
está
have the
acontecendo
launch of
agora e deve rampar
5G
mais
that's
lá para o final
happening
do
now
ano
and should ramp up
com
more
a
towards the end of the
assinatura.
year with the expansion
Então,
of
assim,
coverage.
estamos
And so we
extremamente
are
preparados para
extremely
todas
well
essas
prepared for
sazonalidades.
all of these seasonalities
Nossa
and scenarios.
preparação com a
And so
indústria já
our
está
preparation with the
praticamente
industry
feita,
is
já está
practically
muito bem
complete.
posicionado.
We're really well
Você que
positioned
acompanha
with
os live
this,
pods
and
tem sido
our
muito legal.
campaign
Então a gente
is
vem
really
muito
nice.
forte
So we've
para
been
essa
working
sazonalidade.
strongly for this
E a gente conta com
for
todos
this
os
period,
assets
and we
para a gente
are
trabalhar.
going to have all of
Supermaço
these
de venda, estou
assets to
super
work with
animado
all of our
para as
important
vendas,
sales
para
team.
venda,
It's
seja
really
nas lojas,
excited
no
to
mundo
accelerate
online,
sales in the stores,
no
online
online
sellers,
e no
as well
3P
as
também. A gente também tem
e-commerce and 3P.
bastante
So
conversa
we've
aí com os
been
sellers para a gente chegar nessa
interacting a
fase
lot with the
bastante
sellers so we
promocional.
can reach this
Então,
phase in the year with
estamos
a lot of
otimistas
special
para o quarto
promotions.
trimestre.
So
Acho que o
we're
terceiro
really
tri
optimistic for the fourth quarter.
ainda
I think the third quarter is still
desafiador, parecido ali com o segundo tri, só que
challenging, very
agora,
similar to
à
the
medida
second
que
quarter. Now we
o
need to see
auxílio começa a
how things
circular, como a gente
start moving
comentou
along as the
ainda lá
government
na
income
pergunta
support starts
que
circulating. But I think
o Rubem
back
perguntou
in the beginning of the
sobre
presentation when we talked about
sobre como
um,
o
how this government support will impact it. So if we use the first tranche of the Corona voucher during the pandemic, it impacted more with the debt payments, less of the direct consumption. In this segment, we've been measuring this minute over minute, and what we've seen is that at some moment, it's also going to end up impacting our consumption. I don't know if in the second quarter, if this will be more towards the third quarter. So the last part of the question, I'll pass on to
Olá,
Alison
Dani, tudo bem?
about the marketplace. Hi, Danny.
Para responder a tua pergunta, acho que
To
volta
answer your
no papel
question,
do
I think it's
marketplace, né?
important to reinforce the
Cada
role of the
organização
marketplace.
mudou os shifts, né?
Every
Shiftou
organization
o foco
changed
para voltar a
its
vender para
focus
categorias core.
to the
A
volume of
mercadologia
GMP
está
and
mais
the
presente no dia a dia dos
core
nossos
categories,
clientes.
so the long tail
Isso a
can
gente já
be more
tem
present in the
percebido.
day-to-day
A nossa
of our
coluna
customers. This is something we've
deixou de
already
ser o
achieved, not only in
aplicativo,
the volume
como
of
também o volume
orders
de
that grew
itens
thirdly, but
por
also the volume of
direcionamento.
items per
As compras são cada vez mais
order,
recorrentes,
which
com
means
itens
that the
mais
purchases are being more
no via
recurrent with
marketplace. Isso
more
é
items
ainda mais
in the
evidente.
cart.
Então, esse é o papel
And
número um. Papel
this
número
is even more
dois,
evident in the marketplace. And the
dentro
second
do
role of
nosso
the marketplace
ecossistema,
is
é gerar
within our
volume para os outros
ecosystem, we want to
negócios.
generate
Então, o
volume for
marketplace
the other
também gera
businesses.
uma
So the
volume
marketplace
importante para a
also generates
logística,
an important volume for
dando
logistics
eficiência de custo,
and adds a
e mais
cost
velocidade na
efficiency
operação.
and, of
E
course, more
também a
speed.
gente, esse
And
ano,
also,
uma
from this year
novidade
onwards, which was
praticamente única no
something
mercado, né,
a
de
pretty good surprise in the
exclusivamente
market,
canal de
which
venda para
is
o CDC.
it's an
O CDC
important
não, a
sales
gente já vem
channel
rampando
for
a
the online
penetração
CDC.
do
So
CDC
we've been
nesse
ramping up our
aplicativo
penetration in
em algumas
CDC in
prefeituras.
the 3P categories, which
Terceiro
is good
papel
for
do
everyone, really.
marketplace
And
é
the
o
third
terceiro,
role of the
é o
marketplace is
break-even. A
what
gente
you
vai
mentioned. It's
perseguir
the
esse
break even.
break-even.
It's really searching for this
Com o tempo,
break even
isso
scenario,
cresce
but
muito.
over time, as you grow a
É
lot,
difícil operar com
you
perfeição
sometimes have a
uma
bit of a
organização.
difficulty to
A
operate
gente
this with
fez isso ano passado e agora a
perfection
gente
and
vai ajustando.
optimization.
Então,
We
é
did this in the past, now we're
operacionalização.
adjusting this. So
Então,
it's just
repetindo um pouco
operationalization.
do que você
So I'm
disse,
going
nós
to
estamos
repeat a bit of what you mentioned,
cuidadosamente
right? We're
vigilantes
being
nesse lance do break-even
carefully
no
optimistic
marketplace. A
with
gente vai
the
perseguir
achievement
isso
of the
e
break-even in the marketplace.
todas as unidades
We're
aqui
always going to be searching for
perseguem
this.
isso. Eles não
All of the
perseguem
VA
break-even.
units are
Isso
always
foi
going after
adquirido
this,
agora em janeiro, já
which is
começou a
examples of
funcionar, já
fulfillment
começou a
acquired now in
entregar
January and it
entrega,
started to
mas a
operate in
gente
this big
opera com
structure.
break-even
We've
também
been
aqui na
operating
nossa
with a break-even
logística.
also in
Então a
our
gente vai
logistics.
perseguir isso
So we're going to be
sempre.
searching
Acho que é
for this
importante
always.
também dar
And I
luz,
think
né,
it's
que
also
esse
important
break-even
to give you
pode
some
se deu também
information
pelo
about how the
crescimento
break
do take
even
rate. Nós fomos
also
os
happened due
primeiros
to
a
the increase
comunicar
in
ao
the take rate,
mercado
where we were
em
the first
dezembro,
ones to
ativamos em
communicate to the
janeiro.
market
A gente também
about
fez
this
um
in
ajuste no
December
fluxo de
and
pagamento
January.
dos sellers,
We also
em
adjusted the
razão do
payment
contínuo
flow for the
estabelecimento
sellers
de uma
because of
matriz
the
de
financial
dívidas. Isso
costs we're
também
experiencing
fez um
now.
ajuste que
So
contribuiu
we've
também
also
para
performed an
melhor
adjustment that
rentabilização da
contributes
operação.
to
E
greater
terceiro, o que a gente
profitability in the
faz
operation.
no
And
dia a
third,
dia é a
what we mentioned, which is
personalização,
the
RP, a
day-to-day
forma da gente fazer marketing,
operation and how we can
como que a
redo
gente
marketing and how we can
mede
redo
frete, etc.
all of the freight and transportation structures, etc.
Super obrigada,
Thank you.
pessoal.
Thank you, guys.
Nossa próxima pergunta é do Andrew.
Our
O
next
Andrew vai
question
fazer
is
toda
from
a pergunta em
Andrew,
inglês e nós
and he'll ask
traduziremos em português.
the question in
Então, Andrew,
English, but then we'll answer in Portuguese.
Thank you. So, on the marketing spend, it was an encouraging result this quarter. Just wondering if you could provide more detail on the areas you
Nós tivemos um
pulled
resultado
back,
muito
and also
interessante
as
esse
you
ano. Eu queria
continue selling
mencionar se
newer
você poderia,
categories on the
na medida que vocês
marketplace, how do
vendem
you think
novas
about the
categorias
need
no
for marketing
marketplace,
spend
como
to
vocês
promote that
imaginam
business?
a necessidade de promover esse negócio? Muito obrigado.
Eu vou começar aqui, acho que o Elson também pode
I'm going to
ajudar
start
um
off
pouco.
here, and I
Bom,
think
na verdade,
Alison can help
como eu
me
disse
also.
no início da
As
pandemia, eu acho que
we,
a pergunta
well,
é
thank you,
muito
Andrew, for
atual
the
aí.
question, first of all, and thanks for
A
being
gente
here
vem
today in our
ganhando
call.
muita
As I mentioned, we were
produtividade na
gaining a
Via,
lot of productivity
baseado em
at
todo o
VIA
investimento
based
que a
on
gente
all of
fez
the
na plataforma.
investments
Isso
that we've been
vale
working
também
on in the platform, and this is also
para o
valid
nosso investimento de marketing.
for our
A gente está
investments in
cada
marketing,
vez mais
so that
assertivo,
we
os
can
algoritmos
be
são cada vez
more
mais
assertive,
assertivos
and algorithms are
em
really
usar
getting
toda
more
a
precise
base de
as
clientes que
we
nós temos
use
aqui na Via para
our
ofertar
base
de
for
maneira
customers
cada
here at
vez
VIA to be able to
mais
offer
barata.
this
Então,
in a
cada
cheaper
vez
way.
mais a gente depende
So more and
menos
more,
da mídia
we've
paga
depended
para atrair o
less on paid
consumidor
media
e para fazer esse
to be
relacionamento
able
com o consumidor.
to attract
Sem dúvida
consumers.
nenhuma, essa
But
escalada que a gente faz
the
no
scale up
marketplace
that we've been
só
working on this,
ajuda muito isso e enriquece
this
ainda
really
mais
helps
essa
and
nossa
enriches
oportunidade.
our
E também,
capacity even
claro, a
more.
gente vai acabar
Uh,
ter também
and
esse
so we
dado.
will really,
Aí não estou mais falando da despesa, estou falando da receita
now
com
we're talking
advertising
about
que a
the
gente
revenue with
também tem na plataforma
advertisement
e já
that
começou a fazer, e já
uh,
começa a colher frutos. Então,
we've
essa é a
had, and
primeira
we're going
dica
to
que eu
start
queria
collecting the fruits as well. Oh, Andrew, thanks for that question. And I think that the company here has been experiencing a transformational process, especially in how we're going to do marketing. So historically, we've been working a lot more in the core categories where you have a lot of media and highlighting, of course, a small volume of SKUs, those categories that most sell, which are the top of mind items or hot items when you consume what people normally consider the destination category. So as we increase this power for the marketplace, um, and I think this is also a very complex shift. So it's really micromanagement and this it requires some learning process. But what we've done here is really surprise ourselves with the speed of all of this. As I mentioned in Danny English response, we've been optimizing our marketing as well. We never had results that were so positive when it comes to the ROI, especially when we work with micro categories. And so we're super excited with this. And this means that we have a restrained demand when we talk about the brands Pia. So a good example is we have more than 7 categories that are growing 3 digits year over year, and this is the fruit of the evolution of SEOs, marketing evolution of how we communicate with our customer from point to point. And it's important to highlight also about 24% of what we sell today in the marketplace is through the online sellers. So our store and our the store sellers and all of their communication also experience, but we have on their in their hands over 40 million customers in the marketplace, which also helps lever the way we sell with costs that are even more competitive, and the results are the break even we noticed. So we have actually 22,000 sales reps working on social selling all over Brazil. And it's important to mention also that we started our campaign of Everything Life Asks For is Bahia, Tudo que a Vida Pede, Pede Casas Bahia. And that's when we started disclosing this broadness of this process this year. So we're really just starting to see everything we can reap with greater broadness in our coverage. And this campaign will continue for quite a while still.
Obrigado, Andrew. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you,
Próxima
Andrew.
pergunta, vou chamar o Bob Ford.
Our next
Bob,
question is
você
from
quer
Bob.
perguntar?
Bob. Bob Ford.
Então, oi, Bob.
Hey, Bob.
Oi, Gabriel.
Hi, Gabriel.
Levantado. Obrigado.
Ok.
Thanks.
Então, a próxima pergunta é do
So our
Gabriel
next
Disselli,
question
do BTG, por favor,
is
Gabriel.
from Gabriel Giselli from BTG.
Parabéns pelos resultados.
Good
Acho que
afternoon.
só do
Congrats
nosso
on the
lado aqui
results. And just on our side
tem
here, we
dois
have
pontos. Ponto
two
tentando voltar
important
pouco
points.
ali na
One
parte de crediário, que vocês já comentaram
is about the buy
na
now, pay
sequência,
later, as you mentioned
mas
also a
para
bit
tentar
about
entender
this,
qual que é o
and
propósito de vocês para
try to
captação para o
understand
resto
what's
do ano.
your
Então, isso
mindset on fundraising for the rest
esse
of the year. We
resultado
talked
muito
about
bom,
productivity, and this has been
crescimento
very
incrível,
important results,
mas qual que é a ideia
surprisingly
de
positive.
vocês em
But
termos de
what's the main
performance,
idea
captação de crédito
when it comes to how you're going to be offering credit
do risco
and
salário,
in the
se vocês
CDC
puderem
and
comentar também
also
seria
in the
interessante.
risk factors
E a segunda
involved?
pergunta, eu acho que
And
um
the
ponto de
second
vista
question
que eu
is
queria fazer
also
uma
about
perguntinha rápida,
a perspective on um,
melhora sequencialmente o nível de devolução
an,
que
a
vocês estão tendo aí
sequential improvement in the
nesse nível de
levels
dívida.
for
Mas gostaria
the
só de
net revenue.
entender,
But
assim,
I would like to
se pode ver
understand
isso no ano voltando para níveis mais
if we can
históricos,
see
né,
this
entre menores
going
ali,
back to historical
ou se ainda
levels
fica um pouco mais alto para
or if
devolução,
it's
alguma
still
coisa
going
do
to be a little
tipo.
higher, and if there's anything changing in the consumer behavior.
Começar pela última aqui, acho que tem
Well,
assim,
starting off
falando
with the last one
pouco
here,
só da loja física,
just about
essa
this
moda,
impact
acho que
with the
mais alguns
physical stores,
trimestres
and I think
vai
that
dar uma
this
acomodação, porque a gente vai enxergar de maneira
going to
mais
be
linear
accommodated because
a
we're going to start
penetração de
seeing this
cada um
in a
dos
more
canais.
linear manner with
Acho
the
que isso
penetration of
incomoda.
each of these channels. So
A
I
partir
think this is something that could be
crediário ali,
accommodated. But
o
when it
Gabriel
comes to the buy now, pay
a
later,
gente
Calabra will talk
deu
about this a little more.
a
But
gente
we
vem
did give you,
comunicando de maneira
we have been
bem
communicating
assertiva
and
durante o ano que a gente
disclosing in a
deve
very
ter uma
precise
carteira
way that we
mais ou
should
menos, deve
have
chegar uma carteira de mais ou menos
um,
6
a
bilhões
portfolio of
no
about
final desse
6
ano. Então
billion by the
é
end of
para aí
this
que nós
year.
estamos indo,
So that's where we're
de uma
headed.
maneira com
And
todo o
Of course, we're very careful based on all of the algorithms and data that we have here, and we're very confident. Calabra, if you'd like to complement, that would be great. Yeah, that's it, Roberto. Thanks, Gabriel. And we should end the year with about 6 billion reais in our portfolio, which includes a maintenance um, and a small increase in penetration. So when we look at the physical stores, we've been growing a little more in our participation because we see a lot more room without increasing default, without increasing risks. And the same thing happens in the digital CDC. So of course there are different movements. In the CDC, we're at a lower level than the physical stores. The physical stores are already a more stable operation, but both segments and both channels, whether it's a physical store or online, we've been growing a bit of our share, reaching 6 billion reais in our portfolio. And this is, of course, far from an increase in the opening of the risks. We're far from that. We're really happy with the default rates we currently have and profitability we currently have, and how the buy now pay later has been really significantly impacting our sales. So of course we could no doubt ramp up a lot more in a more accelerated way with the online credit. But we're very careful, growing point by point, feeding our engines and our algorithms, and then we take on another step. So we want to grow in a very successful and precise manner. But when we look at the future, we see that there's a huge potential, no doubt. When you see online, there's no reason why in the future would maybe not have a level of penetration that's pretty similar to what we have at the physical stores. And I think that was pretty much it. Well, just about the risk factor. Uh, so I could talk about that. I think that we're going to keep this pretty stable. We should, of course, this will depend a lot on the uh, suppliers for this type of funding. Um, and of course, initially we have a lot of this for small and medium suppliers that need a lot of capital. So we use this kind of facility as Calabra mentioned. CDC should reach about 6 billion in portfolio, so it's an increase of almost half a billion. Sorry, and we won't have much of a difficulty to have it grow with this type of drawn risk for the funding. So thanks, Gabriel. Our next question is from Igor um, from GDL. So thanks for that, Roberto, Edison, and Gabriel. We saw that there's a reduction after the payment of the fifth debenture in June, which is a reduction of 40 beeps and in the cost of fundraising. What we're looking at here is excluding the receivables from credit cards to be able to have the leverage net debt to EBITDA calculation. Yours is just a little higher than your other peers, and I want to understand if you guys have any dynamic up ahead to continue to work on the reduction of the average fundraising costs and how you're looking at the leverage costs and your leverage scenario. Well, thanks, Igor. That's great. But this debenture that was just paid now in June had been raised in the pandemic. So, of course, there's higher costs, but we've been very successful in the reduction of our spread. So, of course, the base rate it has gone up a lot in the past year. We think that there is a curve for the next cycle, but we've also noticed a reduction in the spread, and we've been negotiating a lot. This reduction of about 200 beeps between what we paid and what we raised now in the CRI when we completed it in the beginning of August. It's a spread that's about half of what the debenture we paid for was. So it's an ongoing movement. We should have some debt in the first and second semester of 2023. We also raised some funding in the pandemic. We also feel that we'll be able to really drop the spread as well in these credit facilities. So that's pretty much it. We left a lot. We left banks in this 3-year horizon. We had a lot of market operations, and that helped us to reduce the spread. The rest is the base rate that we expect will have some kind of a reversal in the next quarters. Perfect. Thank you, Padilha. Thank you, Igor. Roberto and team, we have no other questions, and so we can end with a closing remark. Well, I just wanted to thank you guys all for being here at our call, and I wanted to say that we are really following intense discipline and consistency in the execution of everything we intended to do here in the company. We declared this in a very transparent way of where we're headed, and we've been very disciplined as we execute all of this. And of course, we're very careful because of the moment we're experiencing. So preparing the company, if there's a more complex sales scenario, we're really preparing all of the expense center to be even more productive. And as soon as sales ramp up a little more, and as soon as the Selic drops a little more, then the results and the earnings will be a lot more profitability due to the productivity we were able to gain in the company. So this is the sustainable long-term company we're building here at PF. Thank you all so much for being here. I hope you have a great afternoon.